If you had to eat one weird food combination for the rest of your life, what would it be?
You know what? I eat a lot of really weird combinations.
Oh,
Um, plus, being in a food business too.
yeah, you have to try a lot of things.
Yeah. You know what? I never really liked doing just eating one thing. I always like to mix it with something else, whether it was soups or even like meatloaf and meatloaf and potatoes. What's wrong with going in the refrigerator and getting out some sauces and stuff like that? Some pickles or what.
There you go.
But especially drinks. I don't drink one thing of anything. I always mix and match. This is water here now. And generally, like back when I was having sodas, I would get like the Kool-Aid drinks and mix them with all the sodas that I drank. I was addicted to Mountain Dew there for a while.
Yeah.
I was drinking a 6-pack a day.
Wow.
If I didn't have that 6-pack, things weren't good. That was like you drink a 6-pack of Mountain Dew, though, you're not going to sleep.
No.
Yeah,
How do you sleep that night?
it was hard. It was hard. I mean, I could see my heart boom, 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 boom. Um, but it was great. Playing football too. You wanted to be all fired up. Mountain Dew did it.
Yeah, there you go. Mountain Dew was good.
Yeah, it was.
Kids these days don't even know what Mountain Dew is. You don't hear Mountain Dew
my,
or 7-Up.
my father worked in a brewery though. It was a local brewery in Pittsburgh. There was Orange City, and then there was Duquesne, and he worked at this brewery, and I was never a beer drinker. Even though the beer was there some of my friends in high school would say, "Hey, Doug, we got a 6-pack, we got a case of beer. We're gonna go out in the woods and we're gonna drink this beer." I go, I could drink beer right at home. My father, even though we weren't of age, my father said, "You can drink anything you want in his house." He said, "I never," in a very stern message, he's a strong guy, "I never want to hear about you drinking outside this house." Never happened. Why? Because we could go home any day, anytime we wanted. We could have one of those beers with our dinner. I didn't like it. It burnt my throat when I swallowed. I mean, no way. Even like at Ohio State, there was a summer job opening for football players. There's an Anheuser-Busch plant right there in Columbus, Ohio. I worked in the draft beer section. The draft beer section, when they fill kegs, those big metal kegs. How do you think they fill those kegs? They don't get a pitcher of beer and pour it in there. No, it's like a fire hose. And when there's a hole that big on the side, and there's a wooden bung, they call it, and you would fill that after you filled the tank with like a pressure, like a fire hose. It came down, it was metallic, and the keg was sat right there, and that came and joined itself with that keg of beer, and on a pressurized basis, in a matter of just a few seconds, you could fill that whole thing up with beer.
Wow.
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
Michelob or Budweiser or whatever. The problem was when you went to take it off, and this handle was much like you saw in those old World War II movies with the submarines. They brought down the periscope, pulled the handle.
Yeah.
You pushed the handle, boom! It went into the keg of beer, and then it activated. There was a sound or a bell or something after the keg had been filled. When that thing came out of that keg, beer is everywhere. No, beer is everywhere every single time.
Yeah.
You're standing right there, basically getting a shower every time you fill a keg of beer. After 8 hours that you are soaked, I mean soaked in beer. When you start to go home, your body just starts drying up. You touch your hair, it's all like stiff, like there's a cake or something on it. It's frozen in time. That smell, to do it like that and be immersed in it every single day, because they if you wanted to work weekends, you can work on weekends. My point is, I was never a beer drinker.
Yeah.
And like I said, some are, some aren't. It's the same thing with everything in sports, things like that. There's certain people that have a little fire inside of them, and other ones that don't. And thank God, because I was never the biggest, the strongest. I'm glad Mr. Hercules over there, didn't have that fire like, let's go. And, there wasn't going to be anything in your way. You would hit anything you had to, and you would protect your teammates. And I coached also in the NFL for the New York Jets, Atlanta Falcons. I was a head coach in arena football. I coached at Ohio State for a few years, and it was just great memories. Great memories. And it was interesting being both a player and a coach because you could really understand the players.
You see two totally different sides.
Totally
That's
different sides.
crazy. Yeah.
Right. And some of the stupid things that some coaches had told me earlier, I'm never going to say that to anybody that I ever coach.
Sure.
Because I never want to go there. And
so you learned from it.
Yeah, I learned. I really did. I learned from it. And I'm glad I had a chance to play. And I had some great coaches that would do anything for you, they'd go the extra mile. And but it seemed like I always got with the really, energetic, enthusiastic coaches that really brought out the best in players. And I was very fortunate to have that done.
Nice.
So
incredible. So I can say something about the beer. It's actually good for your hair. The pH and the acid on the glass.
Oh, is it right?
That's why you have great hair. It conditions your hair and it gives it a nice shine.
So, yeah, you're right.
Whenever you
it wasn't sure why. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. It works. It works. That's crazy.
All right. If you could only subscribe to one YouTube channel for the rest of your life, which one would you choose?
Jeez, that's a tough one. I think trying to choose one of anything is bad because it gives you only one perspective, and because I don't think there's anything in this life that I've just said, oh my gosh, I'm going to isolate that. That's exactly what I want. No, usually there's always another element that's involved in that. Whether it's choosing where you want to go to college, who your friends are. I mean, who has friends that say, I like you because you smile all the time. That's it. I hate everything else about you, but I like you because you smile. Nobody ever says that.
No.
There's a whole combination of elements that somebody has. I like, there was an acronym that one of our coaches, when I had a coach in Ohio State for that 1 year, there was a coach there, Jim Trussell. He was a big believer on who are your friends? Who are you listening to every day? What are they telling you? Are they building you up or are they tearing you down? And there was a sign in the athletic facility where we went, where the offices were. It was an indoor practice facility when weather was bad. These banners would hang up just sayings from past the history in our country, all that kind of stuff. One was YAW, yah. What is that? You are who you are with. And you know what? It's so true. Yeah. You want to see who somebody is? Who are your friends? Mm-hmm. Tell me who your friends are. Are they achievers or are they non-believers? Do they work hard or they just show up? Do they show up at the last minute and leave at the first moment?
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lesson. Don't ever be the last one in a meeting room. Don't be the first one to leave. Always be the first one on the field, for extra things. It will pay huge dividends. There isn't that much difference between winning and losing at anything after you get out of high school. It's that little thing, though, that means so much. And a lot of people don't realize it. They're going, oh, you're lucky. You've been, so lucky. Go talk to those people that have success. There's nothing wrong with imitating each other. I've had people come up to me and say, Doug, I just tried to imitate to you. Well, what you did, when you got here, when you left, the weights that you lifted, how you played, it really makes you feel good. It almost emboldens you to say, I'm never going to change. I'm just going to keep doing this. And it worked at Burger King. It worked in football. And, there's an element in certain things that once you can get a bond with somebody else, because we're all human beings, and those that live by themselves on a private island are not very happy. You know why? Because they can't associate with somebody. They can't share their life. That's inside of us. And the moment we lose that, we lose who we are in our life. And, we're always, brought up. It's like this last year, I found out on Wednesday I was going to go to a football game on the weekend. And it was the last game of the college season. And Ohio State was going to play Notre Dame for the national championship in college. So on Wednesday, we make a decision. My wife and I were going to go to this Atlanta and go watch the game. At the end of the game, now I don't know any of the Ohio State football players. I don't know any of the players on the Notre Dame team. I do know their coach, though. He went to Ohio State. Marcus Freeman, the head coach. We got along great. And we had many, many hours just together talking. My roommate, other than Walter Payton, was Bob Thomas, a kicker from Notre Dame. He won a national championship kicking a field goal at the end of the game to beat Alabama, So it wasn't almost like I wasn't really rooting for a team. I didn't want either team to lose. And anyway, Ohio State ends up winning the game. Then my wife, we went to the game, and we're sitting there. We're talking back and forth, and look, this is a nice stadium, and it's indoors and all this kind of stuff. But after Ohio State won that game, because it was kind of down to the last minute, they won by some points, but it was still really up for grabs in the fourth quarter. And the game's over. I just felt like tears rolling down my face. It wasn't like I had said anything about being emotional or anything like that. That's really the first time in my life that I watched Ohio State, win a national championship. Well, actually, it was my second. But you know what? Even without saying anything, it was almost like, for my wife and I too, I met her at Ohio State. So it's more than just a place you want to play, it's college and you got a scholarship. It's like, even though I live in Arizona, which is thousands and thousands of miles away, it makes an impact on your life and what you do and what's important. And I think I really feel bad for people that really have never felt strongly about anything, because you know what? They've never felt like they belong anywhere, whether it be in a town, a city, an organization, a team. There's something powerful about all of us working, not just by ourselves, but working with each other on a collective basis. Man, it's something you never forget. And, I got to Ohio State. I thought you guys were going to be a lot more talking about sports and stuff like that. I got a Chicago Bear watch. I got a Ohio State ring. Man, I see these things. You know what? It's not me looking at a ring and a watch. It's like I'm looking at memories here in Chicago and memories here. Meeting my wife, throwing a snowball through her window, her dormitory window. That's how I met her. And yeah, like I said, how I got drafted by the Chicago Bears was, I had to. We were playing Northwestern in Evanston, and there was an injury. A safety got injured. And again, I wasn't a starter at Ohio State. I was the next man up guy. I had to wait. Hey, Doug, somebody got hurt. We need you.
No way.
Yeah, that was it. And in Evanston, Illinois, I got a chance to play that game, and that's in Chicago. That's north of Chicago, in a suburb. And Chicago Bears scouts were at that game, and I had a great game.
Were you just a fan in the?
I was on the sidelines. I was on their kickoff team.
Oh.
So I did run down on kickoffs, but I played 5 games my sophomore year, 0 games my junior year, and 4 or 5 games my senior year. I can't remember exactly what they were. So all in all, I probably had, 5 or 6 games that I actually started because of injuries. And it didn't matter how well I did. One week, I was voted the player of the week for what I did. Well, the next player who I played for was injured. He came back. I was on the bench the next week.
Yeah.
It didn't matter.
But you still showed up for your team.
But you still showed up. You know what? Having somebody behind you, too, that you know is a crazy guy, like I was, you know what? I think it made the players in front of me play better. And it was, it's funny to see even these guys after years and years and years, like I'll maybe go back to Ohio State or something, they have some kind of alumni weekend, or the Chicago Bears. Man, the emotions like come flying out of you, like, man, I can't believe you're here. And we all played together and sacrificed for each other and did whatever we had to do to win football games. It's amazing. It's like, you never forget that. That's somewhere deep inside of you, and it's an imprint. And it's not just, reminded, it's not just contained in sports. It's in a whole bunch of things. Just like I was telling you about these animals, hey, they never forget you treating them nice. And they show appreciation. And, but when you watch those things, you just forget. And I'm watching this game, especially at the end, and I know Ohio State's going to win against Notre Dame, and even though their coach is somebody I coach with in Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, I was on his staff with him at Ohio State. It's life is emotional. And I think the more emotional it is, I think the more you can say, I've had a great life.
Doug, we have a special question that we ask every single one of our guests.
Okay.
What are you doing for God?
What am I doing for God? Well, number one, I strongly believe in God, even if I was a non-believer. There's too many things that happen in my life that I say they can't be accidental. Too many events have happened which totally changed my life. Like throwing a snowball through my wife's window. I've been in a number of car accidents, rolling vehicles. I rolled one truck at least 5 times in Arizona, northern Arizona. And I've come close in terms of danger of dying several times. I'm not saying I was getting ready to not take my last breath. No, just some of the things that happened to me, the crashes, the things that I didn't have to go through. And I don't think anybody could really go through a life and not say that there's something supernatural about this. And I learned that without God in my life and trusting in Him, there's no way I could have ever played the way I played. Because there was really the real possibility of me breaking my neck, running helmet first into people that were much bigger than I am. No person wants to do that. Why? I mean, if you're to win for your team or whatever? No, it has to go way beyond that. You better make sure whatever you're going to die for, it's worthy of something. And yeah, and I really feel like I've talked with God, not necessarily me moving my mouth, but just mentally.
Sure.
After situations, thanking Him and protecting me for things that might have happened to me in a football and out of football. And the other thing is, one thing I really, really loved was I wanted to be a weatherman. With the weather also comes, planetary teaching also. You have to learn about a planet and planets and solar systems and eclipses and all those sort of things. Nobody on this earth could tell me that this wasn't God-driven, in that we live in a universe, we live on a planet spinning around, going through a universe. Things like that in this meteorology school. I said there's absolute concrete evidence. There's a God that created this. And I always ask somebody, why don't, I'm not a believer. I said, okay, well, we're on a universe and a planet, a solar system. I go, where's the universe at? They go, well, it goes on for eternity. I go, what do you mean it goes on for eternity? Eternity still has to have a boundary. Where's the edge? Tell me, oh yeah, it's growing all the time. Okay, what's it growing into? Nobody has ever answered that question for me.
Sure.
So if you want to just look at it from facts, yes, no, right, wrong, then you add all the coincidences in people's lives that's happened, whether it's praying for somebody that's hurt, injured, whatever the case might be. There's things that I've experienced in my life that convinced me there's a God,
Absolutely.
Jesus, and I'm so glad that He provided me with situations that I said, there's no way this could happen on its own. And prayers answered. Wow. I mean, it causes everybody to fall on their knees. And, people say, well, how did you play the way you did? If I didn't have faith, I wouldn't be out there running around like that. I just thought that, especially when you have a family and children, you have a lifetime responsibility to take care of them. And you probably don't want to put something in jeopardy by doing some crazy things that are going to keep you from doing that. And so I'm very fortunate to have a wife she's a great believer, and I couldn't ask for anything else.
What is one thing you will never do again?
There's a whole bunch of those. I'm just trying to put the number one priority up there. Sometimes I don't think I've made a lot of bad decisions, especially, when you start having people that, I was much more reckless the younger I was. I wasn't married. I didn't have children. I didn't have any responsibilities. I didn't have to make a payment, a mortgage payment, a car payment. I was more reckless. There was a time in my life I've just done stupid things that I never would do now. One of them, I really thought I was going to die, was we were at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, staying in a hotel. And there was a walkway that connected the two buildings. When you got up on this walkway, it was elevated like 2 stories high. And you could jump into a swimming pool lower than that. There was a swimming pool right next to it. Mm-hmm. There was a guy on our team, Tim Fox was his name. And he grew up in Canton, Ohio. He was a friend of mine at Ohio State and a roommate for the time. And played in the National Football League for a long time, over 10 years. One of the things after practices, we all would like to go swimming in the pool, especially after practice was over, so we were done for the day. Well, Tim decides he's going to go up on this walkway. Yeah, he's going to jump into the swimming pool from this walkway. That wasn't the best of it. The walkway didn't go over the swimming pool. The walkway went over a concrete area where there was tables and chairs. Tim was special. Tim could run on a field, like he could jog. This is one of the things he did at Ohio State. A lot of times after he got interceptions, he would run, jump up in the air, do a complete flip, and land on his feet.
On his feet?
Yes, on his feet.
What?
Think about that.
That's amazing.
So I see Tim up on this walkway, 2 stories, maybe 3 stories. And he jumps into the swimming pool from the walkway. He covers over concrete areas, tables, chairs lands in a swimming pool. I think anybody can do that. No, Tim, I don't know what his vertical leap was. It had to be like over 30 inches. I mean, he could jump. Who could do that? Who could go run and just jump up in the air and do a complete flip and land on your feet? I made the mistake of getting up on that patio. Now there's a whole bunch of players around us too. Down right there, down below us on the concrete where the tables were. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I made it into the swimming pool. I mean, I thought I was going to die. I jumped off that pad. I realized I didn't have the spring that Tim had. I wasn't thinking at the time. I was just thinking, hey, yeah, everybody's laughing, cheering. Even people in their rooms were cheering.
Oh my gosh.
I thought, man, I can do this.
That took some guts.
So and there's a railing too. It's not like you just jump off the walkway. You got to get up on there's a railing right there and stand on top of the railing like 4 feet high and then jump over top of these tables. And I don't know how I made it into the pool, but as I was entering into the swimming pool, I could feel the touching of my body on the very edge of that concrete area. That could have been the end of everything.
Wow.
Maybe not my life, but certainly my career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was a rose.
From jumping in the pool.
Jumping in the pool.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Well, you won't be doing that again.
No, I just, oh my gosh,
Wow.
Yeah.
Doug, do you have faith?
Do I have what?
Faith.
Faith? Yes, of course, I do. Absolutely. No. In fact,
What does faith mean to you?
means a lot, especially, I don't necessarily hear faith, when I'm making prayers and stuff like that, but I get messages all kind of ways. And they're mostly mental messages. I ask for something and they respond. He responds. And I really feel bad for people that don't believe because they're just missing so much. Forget about the afterlife. Whatever those benefits are. Just knowing that you're not alone and there's somebody in your life that cares about you and what you are and who you are, and I'm not going to say I've cried many times, just thankfulness more than anything else. And it isn't just about me or my wife, it's about, family situations, things like that. Monetary things, I never ever include them in anything I do, because you know what? You're rolling the dice every day. That's all man controlled or society controlled. That's not spiritual. And I just very thankful for the life that he's given me and experiences. And I just think to go back and then to try to connect the dots on this, because everybody I think that's had success and achieved high levels, maybe presidential and things like that, you always think, that they're just spoon-fed, that everything's been given to them. Nothing was given to me, and I'm not saying I did it because I couldn't have done it without a whole bunch of help. And I think along that process, like this jumping off the elevated walkway, any one of those could have knocked me out. The Joe Paterno story, writing the letters, that was huge. The Northwestern, with the safety in front of me gets hurt, and I go in there and I'll go Bear Scout at the game. And he goes, man, we didn't even know who you were. We came to look at all the other guys. And they go, I won the trophy or whatever that week for most valuable player. And I mean, that stuff just doesn't happen. Here's the other thing. If I would have felt sorry for myself, and here's a lot of players, teams didn't really kick players off back then. If you had a scholarship, you really would have to work at it. You would have to do something terrible to get off a scholarship. So a lot of players, they just showed up at practice. They weren't trying to get better. They were on scholarship, and they were going to get a 4-year scholarship and probably get a degree. They didn't have to play. They just had to practice. There has to be something inside of you that goes, this is not good enough for me. Either you're growing or you're shrinking. I mean, it's neutral. You're not a flatliner.
Yeah.
You're either going up or you're going down. And I think of that all the time in my life. And I know there's some days I've gone down, but I stop it immediately and say, no, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to stay up. I'm going to get up earlier in the morning. I'm going to stay up. I don't like staying up late because you know what? I love getting up in the morning. And we all have to get a certain amount of sleep to be efficient. And, or just, who your friends are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had some friends I just say, I never told them, I said, I just have to make sure that this person is not a big part of my life. Because there's nothing there that I can benefit from. And I need to be worth working with somebody else. Because then it's not hard. Because you have somebody else working with you and doing it, wow, it's like, this is fun. Even if it's work, you can have fun. There's movies out there where a lot of times, with maybe prisoners of war or something like that, they worked together and it was fun. Whatever they built, they were working together and they realized that there was only so much they could do.
What's a story from your past that still makes you cringe?
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of those. A lot of those car situations. I mean, I'm not saying I did anything wrong, because a couple times the cars just I lost traction on the road. One of those was I had been interviewing for a franchise position as a franchisee in Colorado, and I had to make a trip down in the winter, especially out in the Rockies. I've had some accidents in bad weather that I felt like I had no control of. It was like I'm on a road, an interstate expressway, and I'm maybe trying to pass somebody. Well, if you're at 5 to 7,500 feet high, there's a lot of snow in the Rocky Mountains. And if you're going anywhere near, 55, 60 miles an hour, you have the chance of all of a sudden, losing control of your vehicle. Just go sideways. You're holding it straight like this, and it's going like this. And then it's time to start saying prayers. Like, dear God, please forgive my sins and everything else. Because it's not going to be pretty, within a few moments. And so I guess I wish I would have just thought about some of the decisions I made before I went ahead and did something stupid. There was one time I was down in Puerto Rico, and there was at a hotel. This was an NFL event. I was down there with another player, and afterwards, this presentation at this hotel was a lion. There was a lion there. And, this guy was out there, making this lion do all these sort of things on the stage. And afterwards, because we were part of the NFL program, we had to get up there and do a question and answer questions, stuff like that. But afterwards, we went backstage and we're talking to the guy, the trainer that had that lion, and he's talking to some other people over here. I just go over, I see the lion there, and I go, man, that's a nice lion. I go over there and start petting the lion.
What?
Don't even ask me what my brain is. I'm going here. The guy goes, Doug, walk backwards, slowly. And I walk back and I go, he goes, Doug, I can't tell you how lucky you were. He goes, that lion does not know who you are. And then he showed me something where he just got the lion a little bit aggravated or something, and he threw in something at him, and sing it.
That's crazy.
I have had so many brain farts like that in my life.
God was with you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt.
Oh, for sure.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, when I saw that one, I can't believe it. Don't even ask me, maybe it was that dog whole thing with the petting the dogs and the animals, and you think everything is, kumbaya. Not really. And yeah, sometimes I've spaced out for some points of time when you really should be on the edge.
Yeah.
And especially if it's something you're not normally doing on a daily basis. Crazy.
Wow.
So my phone's gonna die, so we want to.
Okay, so last question. This is the last question.
Yeah.
If you could thank one person who passed away, what would you say to them?
Okay, I'm talking to them if they're getting ready to pass away.
Like you're talking to them up and
You know what? I don't think that I've ever heard anybody. I guess that's not correct. With knowing, I mean, I believe in God and Jesus and all the things that they've done and accomplished, and there's and you know what? It's just one of those things too that when you feel like you've had conversations on a supernatural basis. I'm not saying I'm some kind of private person or special or anything like that. I just know that my life, without a belief in God, I think would have been totally different. And, starting out as a young person, I was fortunate to have parents that really steered me in the right direction. And, we were never about doing a bunch of swearing or anything like that. Still, I mean, until you start recognizing who God is and acknowledging His presence, you're until you have faith and bring Him into your life. I mean, it's really the most important thing in life.
Absolutely.
It's you can get all these different prizes and awards and whatever the stuff is. It doesn't matter. It's so shallow. It's another person's going to do it the next year. So how special is it? It's like, oh, they get that away every year, whatever it is. And I think it's the faith and hope that faith brings with it realities of life, and it puts purpose for you being here. And then you throw in a couple things that are like unbelievable, that never should have happened. You're going, I'm a believer, and humbled by it. And I laugh at some of the people that I meet that are so real brazen and real egotistical. Like, no, I don't do anything. I do whatever I want to do, and I feel like life and everything. And I said, you never gave God a chance to even come into your life. And if you've got that kind of an attitude, it's that's what free choice is all about. That's the beauty of being a believer or not being a believer. That's on you. And I strongly believe that, like I said, just get back to the whole core of who we are, where we are. Oh, how did this all happen? It was a big bang. Everything was together. Oh yeah, really? What was around the big bang? Where was the corners? Where was the edge of the universe? When I started learning all this stuff, that's why I wanted to go to Penn State. Penn State had meteorology as a degree.
Wow.
Ohio State didn't. You know why? Because nothing happens in Ohio, other than tornadoes.
Exactly.
That was like supernatural to me. And, I still love watching planets and outer space, and just the whole dynamic of it is just so overwhelming. You just got to get down your hands and knees to say thank you for being part of it.
Absolutely.
So true.
It is, and whether you think about it or not, it's inevitable, and so.
Well, that was it for our questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay.
Doug, thank you for spending time here with us. It was such an honor to have you here.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure being here too. I really feel, that's what life is all about. It's not about where you were born or where you came from or who you graduated from college or high school or anything like that, or how much. I think it's funny how some people are just all they're accumulators. They're like squirrels, trying to get acorns. Really, what happens when you die? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I think the greatest part about life is achieving and being able to do things for yourself. That's why I think my children, I've always tried to teach them, listen, I can give you a few things, but you know what? Whoever appreciates, I know a whole lot of people that have been given something for nothing, no consequences or whatever, doesn't mean anything. There's no appreciation for it.
Sure.
Because it was just coming to me for nothing, I can break it or destroy it for nothing. And there has to be some value on it and some connection. And I think, thankfully, for most of us that are getting older and older and older, we start really appreciating that because we realize just how all this thing, it all fits together. And really, we have to depend on each other and have faith. Otherwise, I just have sympathy for people that don't have belief, and it shows itself quite frequently in their behavior.
Yeah.
And it's back to you are who you are with.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell myself so many times I've come back, told my wife, you know what, wasn't a good person, wasn't a good fit. Just gracefully, silently fade off into the future. But I'm not going to spend time when I know that individual is not going to help me at all. And that's not my basis for friendship. It's just that, no, I enjoy, people of faith, and because they're not going to ask you to do something that they wouldn't do. Be put in awkward situations.
100%.
And I find that's one good thing about playing football. There is some danger to it. There's some people that have died from it, and it has consequences. It's going to usually impact your life. You see people, you meet a whole bunch of people from, that are go-getters, people that really don't care. It's just living day to day. And, but, surround yourself with the right people. You're not really tempted, not tempted to do anything, to steal or do something illegal or unlawful. Because the character of and the belief in people, you can't match it. It's just nothing like it. And it's belief.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been so much fun
Yes,
having you.
thank you.
And stay tuned for the next interview.